Hi, and welcome back to Photo News TV. I'm your host, Will Prentice. Today I've got a special guest for you, Phil Nielsen. Phil is the brand manager for consumable products, which is papers, inks, canvases at Amplis Foto. Phil's got a great wealth of knowledge, having worked in the industry for a lot of years, and his specialty is getting those images off of your camera, off of your computer, and up onto the wall where you're able to share them and see them a lot easier than hitting a power button. There's something to be said for having an analog image, something in your hands. And Phil's here to talk about different ways we can do that. Let's see what Phil's got to say. Let's talk about smooth versus textured papers and color temperature, warm versus cold.
Absolutely. When we go back to the darkroom days, there were choices available to you then. I still remember seeing, when I was a kid, all the swatch books in the stores, and they had silk papers, and they had warm papers and cold papers. It was generally thought that if you were printing a black and white portrait, a warm tone paper tended to be the most popular. Things like Agfa Portriga Rapid, Kodak Ectolure G, those are names from the past. And those were incredibly popular in the portrait marketplace. But we give you that same kind of an opportunity today, to use my favorite term of the morning, to help you dial in to what suits the image best. And if I flip through and go to in my handy dandy sample book here, we've got a variety of different images. So you're looking at one here printed on the Hanomil Photorag Pearl. And this is kind of a funny colored image because there's warmth to it and yet almost a purple cast to it.
Yeah.
Very, very stark looking image. And anything with the Photorag name is a natural white. So it's going to be a little bit on the warm side.
Yep.
You may not be able to see it in the video, but if I kind of move this over, you'll see the difference in the color to the next paper. So the base color there, this is called Fine Art Baryta. Once again, a black and white portrait, but a very, very different look to it because the nature of the paper. Anything in the Hanomil range with the fine art name is a brighter white. So depending on what you're printing, it's going to give you that little extra bit of sparkle to it. Why is the base color important? Well, if you think about it, and if you actually analyze the inks in your printer, there's one color of ink you don't have, and that's white.
Exactly.
So whatever the color of the paper base is, that's what you start with, and that's the whitest you will ever be able to get on one of your photographs. So if you've got an image that has a bright white sky to it, and that's important to you, instead of a slightly cream colored clouds in the sky, then you start with that whiter paper base. We actually have one that's even a wee bit more stark, very, very bright white, and that's called the Baryta FB. And this is arguably the brightest paper in the Hanomil range. I won't say it's the most popular because it is a very stark kind of a thing. But the image choice in this particular case, that's absolutely perfect for it.
Yeah,
you want something bold and dramatic.
Contrast.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Baryta FB is a perfect choice. The other argument is gloss versus matte. All of the so-called glossy fine art papers really started coming on the market just a few years ago, and it was Hanomil's response to people shutting down their darkrooms. Back in the day, when you were printing in your darkroom, you had your choice between resin-coated paper and fiber-based paper, and the fiber-based paper, again, different textures and tones. So the glossy fine art papers are very much a response to that, what would be called a non-ferrotype glossy darkroom paper. And non-ferrotype means it just didn't dry with contact on a metal plate, so it didn't have that very exceptionally high gloss, just kind of a nice luster to it. So a broad range of these glossy fine art products were brought out to replace the darkroom papers that people simply weren't using anymore. The matte papers are great if you don't want to have reflections. As is typical with glossy, depending on where you're going to be viewing it, you're going to get specular reflections. So if you've got a window exactly opposite the image that you're going to print, glossy may not be the best choice for you. Whereas a matte paper works absolutely beautifully. I can hold it any which way, and you will not get those kinds of reflections to it. What you do have to take into account, though, is the texture to the paper. And most people, when they look at a print, are looking at it like this. In our particular situation, because we have lights coming in on the side, it's actually very easy to see the texture here.
Yep.
That's known as cross lighting, and that cross lighting really allows the texture in the paper to be seen. If you have a much flatter lighting style, you won't see that texture. So it's important to look at the image in the kind of environment that the lighting will be displayed in your home or office or wherever you're going to have the prints up.
So because if I hang this on the wall and put an overhead light, that light will cause more of the texture to show because it's a directional light.
Exactly. Whereas if you have very diffused light, you probably won't see that texture. So up to you as to what suits it. In this particular case, I love the texture to it. It really, the way that this has been done, that painterly look, it is a photographic image, but looks very much like a painting.
Yes.
The texture really becomes an integral part of it. As I used in an earlier example, sometimes texture can be overpowering.
Yes.
So you really do have to consider which image you're printing and how important is the smoothness or the texture. If you're printing with canvas, that becomes another part of that equation. All of the canvases have a texture to it, some a bit more than others. We'll touch more on canvas in a later episode, but really the choices are extremely fun to play with. Just find subtle ways to manipulate or change your image. The last thing that really comes into play is the color of it. So once again, let's talk about suitability of an image. One example I like to use for architectural photography is if you've got a photograph of a building and it's all steel and concrete and glass, you probably wouldn't want to print that on a warm tone paper.
No.
Because really, there's nothing warm about that image. It's a very cold kind of an image. And in fact, in the sample book, one of the images that Hanamyo uses is this one right here, and that's on their PhotoRag Bright White.
Oh, yeah, that's very bright.
So this is actually the whitest paper in the Hanamyo line, and this has something called optical brightening agents in it that make it that white. That's a little bit of a controversial topic because the optical brightening agents will degenerate over an extended period of time. The point I make to customers, you're selling an image today, you want it to look exactly the way you want today.
Mm-hmm.
You're not too concerned about what it's going to revert to 40 or 50 years from now. What will it revert to? Natural white. So it will become a little bit warmer, but over an extended period of time. Nothing that any customer ever has to worry about, and it is still considered fully archival, even with the optical brightening agents. Conversely, within the Hanamyo range, the warmest paper that they have is a product called Bamboo. And I'll just go back to the image that I showed earlier, and you can very quickly see the difference in the white between the two of them.
Oh, yeah. It's very yellow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very warm. It's what we refer to as a natural white, and it's due to the nature of the bamboo fibers that it has that warmth to it.
Yeah, certainly great for portraits.
Absolutely. So there's your comparison. The whitest paper in the range, the warmest paper in the range. And even in all kinds of lighting conditions, you'll be able to see that differential between the two of them.
Thanks for that, Phil. That was pretty informative. Looking forward to trying out some of the stuff that you've talked about today. If you want to follow along with more information to stay on top of this series, hit the subscribe link. We've got a lot more great content coming. Don't forget to click the like button. Show us a little bit of love. If you've got any questions or comments, leave them down below as well. We'll get back to you. We might even address it in the next video. Thanks and happy shooting.